Hello, my name is Susan Piver. I'm a writer and longtime practitioner and teacher of Buddhism. I've come to see that many people think of Buddhism and meditation practices associated with it, like mindfulness, as ways to reduce stress. But I would like to tell you that the Buddhist path is far more rich than that. It is a way to wake up, to become liberated from suffering. And forget about enlightenment, it's also a way to live your everyday life more fully and meaningfully. This podcast is to share with you classical Buddhist teachings that I have found enormously beneficial, and also to tell stories from my own life about how I applied and misapplied these teachings. And I do want to tell you from my more than 30 years of experience that the Dharma is real and it provides an extraordinarily nuanced, profound, and pragmatic guidebook to living a life of wisdom, compassion, and courage. The other day, I was leading a meditation session for my online community, the Open Heart Project Sangha. We sit together every day, by the way, 7 days a week from 9 to 10 East Coast time. Half of it is for meditation and half is for any conversation people might want to have. You're very welcome to join. And in this particular session, someone wanted to share about a book they had recently read, sharing updated research into the practice of meditation. This research was skillfully done, super credible, rigorously crafted, and it showed, drumroll please, that meditation is really good for you. It makes changes in your brainwave patterns that are advantageous. It makes you happier. I mean, that's not exactly what it said, but let me summarize. It showed beyond doubt that meditation will make you feel better. And that is great. And there was some sense that the longer you sat, the deeper these benefits would become. And the benefits are in the way your brain works. And, I'm not going to argue with that. But this news was delivered with the sense that, okay, everybody, we can relax. Science has proven that meditation is awesome. So yay for better brainwave patterns, I suppose. And I sound like I'm making fun, and I guess I am a little bit. Because my first thought was, okay, this is great. This helps everybody relax to know that science stuck things on people's heads. And these people were very deep practitioners, real practitioners. And now we know, yay. So this research has been going on for the last 30, 40, 50 years, and it's, again, really good. However, there is another set of research that has been derived over the last 2,500 years via anecdotal means, experientially noted, that meditation doesn't just make you healthier, body and mind. It makes you more wise, more compassionate, more fierce, and has the capacity to liberate you from suffering completely. And oddly, this suffering includes things like believing that improved brainwave patterns are what we're aiming for. And I am glossing over the importance of this research, so forgive me, non-glossers over research. But when I hear things like this, I just want to share more vociferously or volubly these other important points about meditation. It's a spiritual practice. Yeah, okay, brainwaves, that's awesome. But what about being more kind to your fellow humans? What about seeing through and piercing the veil of delusion that keeps us trapped in our suffering? And because of this, compels us to cause others, consciously or not, to suffer too. What about those things? What about the power the practice has to show us what is beyond conventional thought? I feel so strongly about asserting and reasserting this other view of meditation, of so-called mindfulness, that it is so much more than what we have made it out to be. And I feel so strongly about this that I just wrote a book about it called Inexplicable Magic, Meditation for Mystics. It's short, and it elucidates 7 core principles that point to the deeper, I would say, benefits of meditation practice. And I'm going to share with you these 7 principles. The book will be out in about a month, presumably. It's self-published, so that's why I say. And it posits, again, 7 principles that I kind of think are the opposite of what is commonly thought about meditation and spiritual practice. And I'm not particularly a contrarian, but I'm feeling quite contrary right now. And I want to share these things with you from an alternate perspective. The first contrarian principle is we engage in ritual. We're not trying to divorce meditation practice from its spiritual roots. We're not trying to corral it in the very arid desert, if I may say, of self-improvement, which begins with the idea that there's something wrong with you, with me, and we need to fix it. So let's get out our toolbox and pull out the meditation tool and apply it to repairing something that is broken. Actually, meditation practice is rooted deeply and passionately in the idea that there is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. Let's relax into the truth of our brilliance and our confusion and our goodness and our craziness to see that we are actually complete and whole and worthy right this second from Jump Street, the minute we were born. This has never been untrue. And any and all indications to the contrary are signs of confusion. And this confusion self-pacifies. I know that's not a word. Nonetheless, it self-pacifies. It dissolves on its own when we relax. And relax here doesn't mean calm down, by the way. It means be as you are and let go, thought by thought, sensation by sensation, emotion by emotion, of everything that arises from this clear stream of being that is you, and allow it to settle back into that stream. So in this sense, all thoughts, sensations, emotions, even great ones like meditation is good for you, are waves in the ocean of wakefulness. Don't take my word for that. Don't take my word for any damn thing. Just listen and see what you think. That's actually the whole practice too, is discovering your own wisdom, your own insight. And it takes a minute. So please be patient. So the first principle, we engage in ritual, means we conduct our meditation practice within a container that recognizes that we are not just trying to relax into ourselves and withdraw to calm down. Those are not bad things, but they actually run contrary to the truer purpose of practice, which is not to calm down, but to wake up, not to retreat within, but to open to the existing energies around us, not to withdraw, but to fully enter our own MF lives, to live them, to experience them, to feel all the things, to let down our guard. And when we practice as part of ritual, that container arises spontaneously. The great Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way and many other things, said, the first rule of magic is containment. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to call this book Inexplicable Magic. And the ritual creates the container, the invisible, unseen, but felt container for the magic, aka your practice, aka you. So your ritual can look like whatever. It helps if there's something to focus on, like a table with a picture or an image of some kind of something or someone you love. Could be a candle, could be a stick of incense, could be a little bowl with sea glass, just something that evokes energies, feelings, textures that you love. And when you practice, you sit down in front of those things that you love and you feel them. Something in you reaches out to connect with wisdom figures or symbols of beauty or things that smell wonderful like incense. Although I don't like incense, but cool. If you like it, great. So your attention immediately starts to emerge from within to connect with the space in between you and whatever it is you're sitting in front of. That's ritual. We acknowledge from the moment we sit down that we want to connect with something bigger than our own deep and wonderful intelligence. So, by the way, subsequent episodes of this podcast, we're going to look at each of these 7 things in more depth. The second principle, which is the opposite of what is commonly thought about spiritual practice, I would say, is the personal is not an obstacle. It is the way. So many schools of spiritual thought, not incorrectly, say the ego is the problem. If you could get rid of your ego, you would be deeply spiritual and liberated from suffering and all would be well. And on one level, that is true, I think. Our ego, so-called, keeps us mired in a small view of the world and of ourselves. However, if we start our journey by saying something like, shut up to ourselves, don't have preferences, don't have sorrows, don't have joys, if only you could get beyond all those things, everything would be great. We're not going to get very far because the part of us that is saying to ourselves, if only you could shut up and stop having preferences and joys and so on, if only you didn't have an ego. That is your ego saying, hey, look over here, let me try to distract you from what you really are longing for, which is liberation. So we don't want to listen to that. That is a very shaming, guilt-inducing, binary way of looking at this profoundly nuanced journey. If only I didn't have an ego, if only I didn't have me, if only I could shut up, if only I wasn't me, things would be good. So how do I shame myself out of existence? Well, that's not the instruction. The instruction is start with what you are, where you are, who you are. And in this sense, the personal is the way. You look deeply at yourself, your responses, your joys, your sorrows, as aforementioned, and you try to see, where does this come from? With the guiding principle being something like, if you throw a stick for a dog, this is the principle, so be patient, the dog will run after the stick. Right? Cool. If you throw a stick for a lion, according to this analogy, the lion turns around to see who threw it. And that's the kind of approach we want to take with our so-called ego, our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations, and so on. Not, what does this mean? Let me go run after that. Let me try to quell that. Let me appreciate that. Let me punish that. But let me, where did this come from? And of course, we start with our psychology. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, this happened when I was little, or so-and-so said this to me, or whatever it may be. My genetic structure indicates all those things are useful. Well, where did those things come from? Where did those things come from? And if you keep looking, you may arrive at the sort of koan-ish question, what did I look like before I was born? Of course, there's no answer to that question, but that's how deep we want to go. And we have to begin with ourselves. So the personal is not an obstacle. It is the way. Ego is not a problem. Thinking ego is a problem is. So that's number 2. Number 3, also running contrary to conventional wisdom, which says meditation will make you feel better. It will help you calm down. It will make you blissful, whatever that means. This principle says we rest in heartbreak. We recognize heartbreak. We turn towards our sorrows, not away. And the reason we turn towards is because A, they're real. And everything we do to try to avoid our rage, our sadness, our confusion, our disappointment amplifies them because they just are booted off stage to wait in the wings for the chance to reappear. So, okay, cool. We turn towards our difficulties. And not just because that is healing. Barring trauma, let me just say, trauma is its own beast. So if you experience trauma, if you have acute or chronic trauma, this does not apply. So please note that. But otherwise, when we turn away from such things, such difficulties in ourselves, we cannot help but turn away from such things in others because we don't want to feel them ourselves. So when we feel our heartbreaks, when we recognize our sorrows and so on, first, it's a brave move, it's a bold move. Second, it is the secret gate to true compassion for ourselves, of course, and for others. So we're not trying to escape sadness. In fact, we are perhaps searching for a way to rest in its strange beauty. So that's number 3. Number 4, running contrary to conventional wisdom about meditation and spiritual practice, is we are boundaried. We have boundaries. There are thoughts in so-called spiritual circles that boundaries are a bad idea, that you should be open to all things all the time, that however people show up, however you show up, we somehow should make room for. And I'm exaggerating here because I don't think anyone actually really feels you should make room for everything. However, there's some sense in spiritual circles that if someone gets angry or someone acts crazy or someone is hurtful, that we just should think something like, well, that's their journey, and I don't have the right to not like that. Well, that's bullshit, I would say. So going back to principle number 3, we rest in heartbreak. Well, that creates tremendous vulnerability. When you are on the journey of feeling goes, oh, look, she's here. Let's deepen. And vulnerability continues to unfold. And it can be very unsteadying because the truth is about meditation, you don't feel less, you feel more. You open wider. You don't corral yourself in a safe world of spiritual ease. So it's uncomfortable. That's the bad news. The good news is if you're interested in things like love and creativity and innovation and true wisdom, well, those ride the winds of vulnerability. So those are your friends now. But we also need to set in place ways to protect our minds, our hearts, and those things are called boundaries. So you do not have to tolerate unkindness, obviously. You do not have to keep quiet in the face of craziness. In fact, you mustn't. And on a more subtle level, you do not have to decry, I think that's the word, or change your own sensitivities in order to meet the world as it presents itself to you. You do not have to listen to people that you don't want to listen to. You do not have to be in relationship unless you have to because they're a family member or you work with them or you've just chosen to stay. You do not have to remain in relationship with people who don't like you. These boundaries are important because they widen the stream of spiritual wisdom. They don't cut you off from it. So please remember to have boundaries. Personally, I may have said this in a previous episode. One of my boundaries is I don't work with people one-to-one, even though I love talking to people one-to-one and I teach a lot and involves a lot of conversation with my fellow humans. But I don't want to teach one-to-one because I find it exhausting. I feel that it's more protective, not just of me, but for the other person, to not think I can solve anyone's problems. Because I'm exaggerating everything here, but I don't work with people one-to-one. That's a boundary for me because I don't feel confident. And it also gives me a headache. So that's number 4. Number 5, running contrary to the notion that meditation is about making my world tight and right. Number 5, my personal favorite, if I may say, is we clean up after ourselves. And this doesn't mean you're a neat freak or you don't leave dishes in the sink overnight or whatever. It means we TCB, as Elvis used to say, we take care of business. Our house is dirty, we clean it up. If we get in a fight with someone, we try to repair either the relationship or our feelings about the relationship. If we make a mess in our yard, we put things away or in compost. So we tend to our neighborhood. We tend to our bodies by keeping them clean and trying to keep our environment uplifted. We take care of our home. We take care of the space around our home. We think about the people that live on our street, our town, our country, the world. And we try to keep our little piece of the puzzle uplifted. Now, we think, or it's often thought, I should say, that meditation is about strengthening me, and then I can pay attention to the world. Well, I want to propose that the opposite is at least equally true. If I strengthen my world, if I care for it, if I love it, if I repair it, if I order it, it will give me strength. So first I'm going to tend to the environment, and then I'm going to bathe in the echoes and repercussions of this tended to environment. My experience is that this is absolutely so. In the same way that people say, well, in order to love someone, you have to love yourself. I don't find that to be true at all, by the way. I have found that if someone loves me, I begin to love myself. This is the principle here. If my world is beautiful and loved, I will feel beautiful and loved. But if I wait until I feel beautiful and loved to tend to my world, I'm going to shrink further and further from the inexplicable magic that is present. So, okay, coming down the home stretch, the 6th principle in the book, Inexplicable Magic, which is short, by the way. I hope it's good. That's all I can say. Anyway, it is, we dream on behalf of others. So again, conventional wisdom about meditation constantly throws you back on yourself. I will have a clearer mind. You will. I will have a more peaceful heart. You will. I will have more vision. You will. But those things are not ends in themselves. I have a clearer mind, so I can help you have a clearer mind. I have a more open heart, so I can support open-heartedness in the world. I have vision for my life, for myself. So therefore, you can find the confidence to also have vision, because when one person does, the other people feel it. So we dream on behalf of others points to the, I would say, truth that if you're listening to this podcast or have any interest in the spiritual journey or have a meditation practice, no matter how new or old, you can dream because you have the bandwidth. You live inside, presumably. You have food to eat. You have the time to listen, and you have something to listen on. So therefore, you're in the top, 10% of human beings, because, I don't know if that number is right, but there are many people that do not live inside, that do not have food to eat, that do not have a container for their inner explorations, and therefore cannot afford to dream. Understood. Right now, you can. In 5 minutes, you might not be able to, because there's no telling how things will unfold. It would be good to take on the responsibility of holding vision and dreams for this vision-starved, dream-starved, love and peace-starved world right now. Because we're not trying to float off into la la land here. That's not why we dream. We dream because what we cannot vision, we cannot create. So it is important for those of us who right now can see and seek and imagine and create to rest in such visions on behalf of ourselves and those who cannot afford to do that right now. And our meditation practice doesn't just enhance the inner dreamscape, it invites others into their own dreams of a better world. And by better, I mean sane and loving. So your sanity and your loving heart deepen my capacity for sanity and loving kindness. So please deploy at will. And the final principle, number 7, is we live as mystics hiding in plain sight. I made all these up, by the way, so I just want to say that. Make sure you know that. However, I did not make up that meditation has roots in mysticism. And by mysticism, I don't mean woo-wooism or anything remotely New Agey, so-called. I mean that our practice has been demonstrated, not in the last 30 or 40 years by brainwave analyses, but in the last 2,500 plus years by millions of practitioners, that as we sit, we open. And as we open, we feel energies and vibes and sensations that supersede the material plane. That might sound religious or weird, but please hang in here for a second. There are unseen energies, my friends. You know this. You walk into a room, it feels peaceful. Or you walk into a different room and it feels like, uh-oh, someone just had an argument in here. You have an intuition that something's going to go a certain way, and it does. You feel good in this jacket and bad in that jacket. I mean, what are these things if they're not unseen energies? So you and wherever you are right now is lousy with unseen energies. And as we sit and relax our minds, relax our discursive thought patterns, these energies become more palpable. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to become 1-800-psychic or, I don't know, become a wizard or anything. It means you're going to feel more deeply the rhythms and textures of your life, your experience. This, I believe, is what mystics do. They see beyond convention, or whether they see or not, they don't imagine that this life, this world, this body, this mind, this heart, that these things are limited to the material plane. And only what I can see and feel and prove through sticking things on my head and having great research, only those things are real. That's a sad state of affairs. In Tantric Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism, perhaps other styles too, I don't know, this is called nihilism. And it's one of the two extremes to be avoided in spiritual practice. And I made a previous episode about the two extremes. So if you want to go back and listen, we'll put a link to it in the show notes. But rather than the two extremes, one of which is nihilism, which says get your brain waves right and that's the best you can do, or only what you can see, feel, and touch and so on is real. And when you die, there's no place to go, maybe in the ground, but there's no deeper meaning. There just isn't. So do your best to be a good person, probably, but in the end, it doesn't matter. What you do now ends with you. There are no karmic patterns, and so on. The other extreme, called eternalism, says everything matters and someone's keeping score and you're never going to really know anything because real wisdom and real beliefs and real spiritual potency does not reside within you. It resides in an external being or thought pattern or belief system. If you act right, you can get in, but you're not the one who determines right or wrong acting. And that is eternalism. So the middle way is not nihilism, not eternalism. It's not nihilism. It's not eternalism. It's not either or both. It's something else. It's not the midpoint between the two extremes, one of which is represented in the spiritual world by let's get the brainwave situation right. And on the other end of the spectrum, let's transcend this mortal coil, this sense of self, to get somewhere else. In the Buddha Dharma, or my understanding of it at least, neither of those are the aim. The aim, rather, is the middle way, which is not the midpoint between the two. I'm going to have to leave it up to you to figure out what it might mean beyond that. But for me, the middle way is only now. And now, as the great Texas singer-songwriter Butch Hancock said, it's now again. So I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for listening. This is all material from my upcoming book, Inexplicable Magic, Meditation for Mystics, aka you. And till next time. And in the next episode, I'm going to resume the podcast after party, by the way, with by sharing a song with you that I love. Okay, till next time.